Welcome to live Daily Tottenham Hotspur news with me, Barnaby Slater. And as we all await Big Ange Postecoglou's pre-Manchester City press conference, all we can hope for is a fresh bill of health so we can go into tomorrow night's game with a deep squad and a genuine shot to nothing at trying to do an historic treble over the champions. Meanwhile, the transfer Don himself, Fabrizio Romano, has brought word of a big-name striker from Serie A that Spurs are sniffing around. Is Don Fabio Paratici back at it on his iPhone headphones again? Also, I'll be discussing news that Spurs have opened discussions with Rodrigo Bentancur's people about a new deal for the Uruguayan midfield maestro. Do you want to sign him up for the long term? Let me know your thoughts. All this and more in today's live Daily Tottenham Hotspur news. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in once again. As ever, these shows now coming to you live 12:30 p.m. every day on YouTube. Do get involved, get in the comments. Also, please do press that like button if you haven't already. And if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe for daily Tottenham Hotspur news, transfer news, and everything. And actually, just 1 minute before I came on live, I saw that Tottenham's social media team have released an interview with Ange Postecoglou, just his pre-press conference team news. And that is pretty much that everybody who was involved in the Ipswich game at the weekend is fit again, has remained fit, no more problems from there. He was hoping and said that Ben Davies might be fit to play against Man City, but that is not the case. He's not ready. And then he gave a little update on those longer-term players. And he was asked whether his kind of previous suggestion that they might be fit around the first leg of the AZ Alkmaar game. And he kind of seemed, I think, to row back on that a little bit. He said some of them are in training now, and we have seen, haven't we, some social media fit pictures of Christian Romero in training. So I assume that's who he means. Van de Ven, I think, is probably at a similar level training. But what Ange actually said was it might be a little much to think that they'll be involved. He did talk about potentially getting them in match day squads. In fact, the word he used was participating. So, I mean, it's about reading between the lines, isn't it, really? But if you ask me, it seems now that maybe having Van de Ven and Romero available for that first leg away in Alkmaar is probably a little bit too soon. But maybe a week later for the second leg, having them in the match day squad then could be a goer. He says they're all those kind of longer term injuries. So basically meaning Van de Ven, Romero, Solanke, Richarlison. He says they're all about the same time away. So maybe we're looking at that second leg, or maybe Ange is, I don't know, I'm imagining here, but trying to think of it in a positive light. Maybe he thinks that we can get through the Alkmaar two-legger without them, and then he wants them just super properly fit and up and running then for any kind of quarter-final that we'd have after then. But let me know what you think. Have a look at that social clip of his after you watch this video. And I guess he'll be doing his proper press conference probably from about 1 o'clock, 1:30. So we'll have the journalists asking him kind of full questions then, and we'll get a full idea of it. But it just strikes me, reading between the lines, that maybe those players are not going to be fit for that first leg. And he's hoping that maybe Ben Davies will be the one who does come back for them, because he is not going to be available for Man City, meaning it will be Big Kev Danso again with Archie Gray. What a season Archie Gray has had. Absolutely amazing. Over 100 of you watching concurrently already. Thank you so much for your support, guys. 20 likes already. Let's try and get that up to 50 likes. If you haven't pressed that like button on YouTube, please do. Also, as so many of you saw yesterday, and I got a few emails and messages as well in support. As I mentioned, I'm now releasing my stand-up comedy clips every day on YouTube Shorts as well, every single weekday. So do go and check them out. There's a playlist called Comedy. Check them out and let me know what you think as well. Appreciate all your support, guys. Now, as I mentioned in the opening, Fabrizio Romano says that there are some valid Spurs links to Dusan Vlahovic, who obviously is a few years ago, incredibly highly sought after number 9, who got his move to Juventus, I think from Fiorentina originally. And for some reason, since he's been at Juventus, even though he's been pretty prolific, it's always seemed like he might be getting closer and closer to a move to the Premier League. Well, Fabrizio Romano said this: it's all open for Vlahovic, many options, nothing decided so far, but I expect Dusan to be one to watch in the summer for sure, as there's nothing agreed for a new deal with Juventus. And that was when he was asked specifically about links to Tottenham. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Is Dusan Vlahovic the kind of player you'd like to bring in as competition for Dominic Solanke up front? He's got a great pedigree. He's a really excellent finisher. I would slightly wonder about how long it might take him to adapt to the Premier League, but he is a big guy. He is athletic. He's been on Arsenal's list for a long time as well. So let's see what happens on that one. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments. El Dante, thank you for your comment. It says, need Romero, Van de Ven, and Solanke back. Now, well, listen, I completely agree. We do need them back, but also I think better to be careful with them and maybe trust that we can get through that AZ Alkmaar 2-leg game, because we did beat them 1-0 at home, and we had a pretty kind of reserve team out that day, if memory serves. We should have enough over 2 legs. They're doing well in the Eredivisie, AZ Alkmaar, but we should have enough over 2 legs, I think, with the squad we've currently got, the players who are back and firing, the likes of Udogie, Brennan Johnson, etc., with Kevin Danso added, and obviously Matches Tell as well. We should have enough to beat them over 2 legs, I think. And maybe that's what Ange thinks. And then we're keeping them fresh for a potential quarter-final, which would be against Ajax or Eintracht Frankfurt, which, of course, automatically you see would be a more difficult game. Although Ajax really struggled to get through, didn't they? They're flattering to deceive this season, to say the least. El Dante went on, actually, in another comment, say there are rumours that Van de Ven is out all season. I've seen nothing to suggest otherwise yet. Just keep being told they'll be back soon. Hope they are, but it's a strange one. Well, listen, I think Ange talked last week, didn't he, about Mickey Van de Ven, how he is training, but they're looking to do something different with him and really try and get to the bottom of the biomechanics of his body and try and deal with it in a way where hopefully he won't get re-injured straight away if he's brought back into the team. So I feel like it's probably more like that. I don't think at this point it would do Ange any favours whatsoever to be lying about Van de Ven if they know he's out for the season. I think they don't think he's going to be out for the season. I think they think he's going to be available in the next few weeks alongside Romero and Solanke and Richarlison. So I'm hopeful that that is the correct reality of it. Chris Jays in Kuma, thank you for your comments. Says, I think our medical team at Tottenham Hotspur are not doing their job very well. And Mickey and Romero were said to be back in the middle of February, but we're about to be in March. Yeah, just the same thing, Chris. Really appreciate your comment. But listen, I think the problem Spurs have had basically throughout Ange Postecoglou's reign is that it's not just that they get injured. It's not just that they get the same muscular injuries, so many of them in the squad getting them. It's that they keep getting re-injured when they get brought back as well. So I have to say on this occasion, now that Spurs undoubtedly not going to get relegated, and although we're on a good run, probably unlikely we're going to come higher than 10th in the league. I am all for them being wrapped in cotton wool, as I've said so many times, and just being played in the Europa League and not being started in the Europa League until they're properly ready. That's the way I feel about it. JH says, striker, when I talked about Vlahovic, we already have Solanke and Tell. How do you feel about Tell, guys? Let me know in the comments. I didn't think he had a great game, but he is obviously adapting to the Premier League. He scored that good goal at Aston Villa, but I thought he really struggled to hold the ball up, kind of similar to how Sonny does when he plays in the 9, actually, against Ipswich. And he doesn't look like a kind of, box fresh, ready number 9 at the moment for Spurs. I'm sure he's a great finisher, and as he gets more rhythm in his legs, we'll see more of that. But the reality in that game was it was very easy for the Ipswich centre-backs to just kind of plough through the back of Matthias Tell, not let him get hold of the ball and bring other players into play. So let me know in the comments how you feel about him. Is it more likely that he will get minutes, kind of managing minutes alongside Sonny and Mikey Moore on the left-hand side when Solanke comes back in? And if that is the case, and if Ange doesn't think realistically that by next season Tell can give us a really good option in holding the ball up in that number 9 position, then I could see us going for another number 9. And that's why maybe those reports of Vlahovic and some of the other strikers we've been linked to aren't so wide of the mark. So let's see what happens. Heidi in the comments says, got to say goalkeepers and defense is now strong and has depth. Yeah, I agree. And let's keep our fingers crossed that there are no more injuries. James Nell says, Tell playing on the wing remains to be seen, not ideal at 9. Conrad Hart says, hi, Barnaby, Tell is no Delap, that's for sure. I have to say I was impressed with Delap at the weekend. I talked about it in my video yesterday. Proper old-fashioned number 9, really good hold-up play, winning stuff in the air. Really good option. I think other clubs who would be willing to probably pay more wages will probably come in for him this summer. I know he's got that buyback clause, but I would like to see us interested in him. Oh, my God, imagine if we had if we had Solanke and Delap available as squad number 9s to rotate around, that would be unbelievable. Where it comes to Richarlison, who always tries his best but just gets injured far too much. I've said it before. I think he will go the way of Gio Lo Celso in that he's undoubtedly a talented player, but Big Ange will get fed up with the limited options he has in terms of playing him because he just gets injured far too regularly. Nick in Hong Kong, thank you, mate, says Tel is still learning his trade in the 9. Absolutely. Stay Anstey says Tell is a kid still finding his feet, and I think having Dom will help him. Yeah, that's true as well, actually. That would be really good, wouldn't it, if Dom Solanke can come back and actually coach Tell in the same way that I'm hoping Vicario will coach Kinski into being a better shot stopper. Hopefully Solanke will teach Tell how to be a really brilliant hold-up number 9 player. Heidi says, what about buying Delap? Yeah, that would be amazing. I just don't know how much budget we're going to have in the summer and whether they're going to be spending it all on a striker when I think the number 6 position is probably more realistic in terms of what we're going to need. PKD81 says, we would not be able to get past Lazio without the combined power of full-strength Van de Ven and Romero. I mean, that is looking quite far ahead. Lazio is a potential semi-final opponent in the Europa League. We've never reached the semi-final of the Europa League since it's been called the Europa League. Obviously, we've won the UEFA Cup, which is what it was previously called a couple of times. Back in 84, I think was the last time. Yes, I agree. I think our best chance, perhaps our only chance of winning the Europa League is if we have an absolutely full-strength squad. Van de Ven, Romero, Solanke, everybody. Almighty Spurs says in the comments, I think Tell will be great, but we haven't seen proof of that yet. Some of his play for Bayern looks great that I saw in videos. Glenn Spark, thank you, mate, says Vlahovic could be a good sign if he really wants to leave Juve. I mean, just with Vlahovic, there have been so many reports down the years of him having interested clubs in the Premier League that it strikes me that him and his agent must be kind of touting him about in the Premier League a fair amount. Maybe that's because they know that's where the most money is to be earned. Dave D says, I wouldn't expect Van de Ven anytime soon. Ange hinted towards it after playing Danso on the left against Ipswich. I guess you could call that a hint because Ange did come out after Ipswich and said we wanted to try Danso in that left centre-back position because he'd have to play there at some points. But I'm not sure if necessarily that's a hint to say that Van de Ven won't be back at all, but let's see what happens. Chris says, I don't think he's the 60 million guy to be brutal. I guess you're talking about Matthias Tell here, saying, I don't think he's a 60 million guy, to be brutally honest. He's not improving us. If all our players are back, he will not start ahead of Solanke. Well, he won't start ahead of Solanke at the moment. But whenever you buy a player from abroad, from a different league who's never played in the Premier League, it always takes time to adapt. It's very, very rare that a player just comes straight in, hits the ground running. If you look at it with Kevin Danso, who has kind of hit the ground running, I'd just say that he has grown up in England. He's played for Southampton before. He was brought up in Milton Keynes. So the adapting isn't quite the same kind of thing. Barrington says, come on, the kid only played 2 games, way too early to form any real opinion. That's a great point, Barrington. Thank you so much for your comment. Completely agree. Let's not forget that when Kulusevski first arrived, it took a few games for him to settle in. Everyone was like worried that he wasn't going to be good enough. And many other examples of it as well. In fact, including Solanke, he missed a couple of chances in his debut against Leicester and people were getting on his back. But I saw enough in that Leicester game actually away at the King Power for Solanke, the way that his movement was, his hold-up play, that I knew he was going to bring an extra dimension. So, yeah, it's far too early to worry too much about Matthias Tell. I really believe that. What else have we got? Heidi saying, spend the money, Mr. Levy, and you'll make even more when you win trophies and sell the stadium name and get more sponsors. Money makes money. I think the reality, Heidi, is there is no money in the bank. There is revenue in which we are making money through the stadium and through the club, but that goes straight back into running the club sustainably. There's no money in the bank with which to just buy players outright straight away, other than the budget that is set aside each year. That is why the club are interested in a minority investment to bring cash flow into the club, to bring an amount of money into the coffers that can then be spent on the pitch. I'm pretty sure of that. It's been pretty openly discussed as well. And Robert Yee says, to many giving Lazio and few others too much credit. New format is allowing mid-table clubs to fight it out for the Europa League. And we all know mid-table have the occasional stinkers. David Blair, thank you for your comment, says, give Tell time. The physicality of the Premier League takes time to get used to. There's no doubt he's very talented. I agree. I think he'll be fine. Okay, just another transfer rumour now. Reports over the last 24 hours at Spurs plan an offer for Breno Bidon, who impressed last season after forcing himself into the Corinthians first team squad in Brazil and establishing himself as a mainstay in the base of their midfield. It's claimed in Brazil that Spurs are big fans of the 20-year-old, having followed his performances closely. Ange Postecoglou's men are keen to bring him to Tottenham Hotspur. They're expected to present an offer for him when the market opens in the summer. I've seen a little bit of this kid. He does look frighteningly talented, I have to say. Also, what I love about him, not only is he a classic Brazilian player, sometimes wears the 10 on his back, sometimes wears the 7, loves to beat a man with a drop of the shoulder, has an amazing long-range shot, but also he's got a bit of bite about him, kind of similar to the way I talk about Bergvall when I watch him. Bergvall looks like the kind of player physically who you'd think, oh, he'll just swan about, not really interested in the physical side of the game. But actually, Bergvall's got some bite about him, and so does this kid, Breno Bidon. Very young. Spurs have dipped their toe into the South American market recently with Alejo Valise, haven't they? So they're clearly keeping an eye on the young talent coming up through. That Valise deal hasn't really worked out yet. He is kind of more of an old-fashioned number 9, likes to get his physicality about, but he's not getting much game time in Spain at the moment. But yeah, worth looking at this kid, Biden. Looks like an exciting player. Obviously, I don't watch a lot of Corinthians games, so I'm just looking at clips off the internet, really. But certainly a talent, very brave on the ball, does things well in terms of the easy stuff, but also a good passer. And like I said, he's got a lovely long-range shot on him. And just a little bit of the scrap about him as well, which I really like the look of. Nick in Hong Kong, just talking about Liam Delap again, says he's built like Gaz in his first 5 yards, fast muscle twitch. Yeah, I was amazed how quick he was when he was outpacing Archie Gray the other day. Okay, guys, nearly 250 of you watching this at the moment concurrently. Really appreciate your support. 50 likes. If you haven't pressed that like button on YouTube, please do press that like button. Again, let's try and get near 100 likes. Let's get this seen by as many Spurs fans as possible. And you can become a member of the channel, only £1 a month, and it really helps support me make this daily content for you. All the details of how are in the description box below. And as a subscriber to this channel, you'll also see my daily stand-up comedy content as well, which I've just started releasing on YouTube Shorts, and you can also see on Instagram and TikTok. All the details of how are in the description box below. As I mentioned in the opening, Spurs have started preliminary talks with Rodrigo Bentancur and his people over a new contract, according to Sammy Merkbell. Discussions at a very early stage, but willingness from Spurs to extend terms. Let me know in the comments how you feel about that. Obviously, Bentancur had the embarrassing, pretty awful ban as a result of his racist comment aimed towards Son Heung-Min and East Asian people. That was a big mistake from him, which he owned up to. He is improving, I'd say, on the pitch. He's had a good few injuries at Spurs, hasn't played nearly enough minutes for Tottenham, but at the moment, certainly when we don't have what I would describe as a proper number 6 in the Rodri mold, I think Bentancur is doing well. He has improved. He's a little up and down. He's not consistently brilliant, but when he's at his best, he really is a top-notch midfielder. So for me, it makes sense that we would get him to tie down to a new contract. But it'd be interesting to see what the terms are. Heidi says Bissouma's not reached his Brighton highs in midfield for Spurs, so we need someone else. If only we could buy another Dembele. I mean, there is no other Moussa Dembele. We had no idea how lucky we were. Still to this day, all of his old teammates say he's the best player they've ever played with. What an absolute Rolls Royce, physical Rolls Royce of a player. It was like a Rolls Royce 4x4. You could not knock him off the ball. You could not predict which way he was going to go. He'd just drop a shoulder either way. He also had a brilliant finish on him, but in his latter kind of Pochettino days, as the injuries started to take hold, he didn't really try and get forward too much. He'd just kind of shield his back four and then beat a couple of men and pass it off to the likes of Christian Eriksen and Dele Alli. Nick in Hong Kong says, we need more Jed Spence club signings a la Conte wisdom. Yeah, good point. David Blair says, Johnny Cardoso in the summer. Now, in case you don't remember, Johnny Cardoso is the Real Betis player who Spurs have a first dibs contract deal on. So if any club comes in for him, Tottenham get first dibs on him, and they have an agreed price for him. But interestingly, they didn't go for him this January window, did they? So I wonder whether that deal, which was negotiated as part of the Gio Lo Celso deal to Betis, I wonder if that one is something that will fall by the wayside. Some other news. Brennan Johnson, Jed Spence were named in Alan Shearer's Team of the Week. Also, this weekend, after the Ipswich game, Son Heung-Min became the first Spurs player to record 70 Premier League assists. What an amazing record Sonny has for Tottenham Hotspur. That is a big milestone for him, without a doubt. And I was just pleased to see him playing somewhere near his best again. Clearly, he just needs more energy in his legs. He needs a rest here and there. And yeah, like I said, I'd be giving more minutes to Mikey Moore and maybe Matthias Tell on the left as well to allow Sonny to be at his best for the big games. Like I said, in the Europa League, let's keep Sonny fresh for those games. Deki Kulusevski gave some quotes to Sky. He was asked what he thinks the goal should be for the rest of the season. He said to get better every day and win the Europa League. He was also asked his thoughts on Vicario and his return. He said he's a fantastic keeper, but he also has that aura, a lot of energy, and that helps the team. And Deki Kulusevski admitted that there were games this season where he feels like he has been only at 40 or 50% fitness-wise. He's also said he thinks there are too many games. So Kulusevski doing amazing stuff for Spurs, considering how many games he's had to play and how he's saying sometimes he only feels at 40 or 50% fitness-wise. You can sometimes see that with him. You can see that he's kind of blowing on empty, and I feel for him. David Blair in the comments says, Johnny Cardoso first buy option doesn't kick in until the summer. Okay. Armin Correa says, Johnny Cardoso is an average player. I think I haven't seen enough of him to really judge on that. But what I'd say is I've been impressed with Tottenham's recruitment under Johan Lang in general. I'd say the only one that we've bought since Lang has come in where I've been a little unsure about how he fits into the system and the style of play is Radu Dragusin. But on the flip side of that, Dragusin is undoubtedly an excellent box defender. And he's young. He's only 22, 23. So he can grow and evolve in terms of his talent on the ball. So if Lang thinks that Cardoso is a good player and a good fit and a good scrapper, then, you know, I'm certainly happy for that deal to go through. However, if he comes in and he's no kind of better than Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who also was a bit of a leader and we miss leadership on the pitch, then that would be disappointing. That's for sure. So let's see what happens. Oyston Smith says, how much do you think Kulu is worth after this season? Well, no one's getting Deki Kulusevski out of our club, I think, in general anyway. But if they wanted to, they'd have to probably spend about £100 million. What do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think Deki Kulusevski would be worth if a club willing to buy him were going to bid. Okay, some reports from James Maddison about how Thomas Tuchel has approached him. Tuchel, it's been heard over the last few days, has been reaching out to potential England players just before he names his first squad. It's the international break coming up in the next couple of weeks, isn't it? And it seems like Tuchel has kind of decided on a large pool of players who he's going to then speak to and decide based on those conversations how motivated they are to play for England. Certainly some reports came out this week that Ben White over at South Woolwich Arsenal has been spoken to as well, of course, because Ben White refused to play under Gareth Southgate, didn't he? Anyway, James Maddison said this: Thomas Tuchel has touched base. I think he was reaching out to a lot of players who would be in the selection. Probably quite a big pool of players that the FA have identified. I'm hungry to be part of that. I feel like I'm in good form. My numbers are pretty good. There's not too many midfielders who can outscore and out-assist me, especially now when I'm feeling good as well, feeling sharp. I know I can affect most games. It's just about continuing to do that. Like I always say, if I play at that level for Tottenham, then the rest will take care of itself because I have a really strong self-belief. Well, what I love about that is Madders talking so positively about feeling sharp at the moment, because he does take a long time to get fit again after injuries, and he has suffered a fair few injuries since he's been at Spurs. I like the fact that he got a bit of a rest at the weekend against Ipswich, and now he should be fully ready and sharp to go against Man City, because he had a great game at the Etihad in that 4-0 victory, didn't he? Scored that first goal, brilliant late run and a volley. And yeah, I agree. I mean, when Maddison's on top form, I don't think there are that many midfielders who are as influential on the ball in terms of how he comes to pick up the ball for Spurs in that quarterback position and really kind of driving the play in each game for Tottenham Hotspur, but also those late runs that he's really added to his game. Late runs into the box, kind of Dele Alli style. I've been very impressed with those. And of course, he can take a free kick, scored that goal against Villa earlier this season with a free kick. We need more of that from Madders as well. So let's keep him fit. Again, another player who I think if we're going to win that Europa League, go deep into that, get to the final, we're going to need him to be fit for all of those big games. We have a tremendous spine when they're fit of Vicario, Van der Ven, Romero, then Maddison, Solanke, and then offset with Kulusevski, the likes of Odobert to add some pace there as well. Bentancur, of course, and then some of those young, exciting players like Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, just supplementing that great spine. So if we can keep Madders fit, all the better, and make sure he's playing in those big games. Okay, Leeds United are attempting apparently to explore the possibility of signing Manor Solomon on a permanent deal after his sensational form for Leeds. They got another win last night. Rumours yesterday, of course, that Everton were interested in Solomon. So that could be a bidding war that can only help Spurs get more money in for him. A doctor specialist has spoken about Richarlison's injury problems. Dr. Bra, a doctor in physical therapy, Bra, spelled Brar, by the way. He's a sports scientist as well, said this. This one with Richarlison is calf related, and it's one that's going to keep him out for a few weeks based on his recent injuries and where we are in the season. I wouldn't expect him to get out of this cycle until the season ends, and he has the needed time to really build up his fitness and health. So once again, more reports from experts that Richarlison's injury problems are not going to go away anytime soon. Before tomorrow night's game against Man City, Paul Merson, who loves to hate on Spurs, has actually suggested that he thinks Tottenham are going to cause City a lot of trouble. He said this: I expect Spurs to trouble City. If Erling Haaland isn't fit and it becomes an end-to-end game, I have to back Spurs for the win. City have no firepower. They don't look like scoring at all. The new signings have not worked for them either. City can still finish in the top four, but they have some tricky fixtures against Forest and Brighton. If they fail to beat Spurs, they could be playing catch-up to other teams by the time they face these sides, and that's never a good thing. Tottenham's front three will have goals in them, and with Son Heung-Min playing with a lot of confidence, Spurs will definitely trouble City. And he's predicted Tottenham to win 2-1. Let me know in the comments what your prediction is for tomorrow night's game. My problem with Paul Merson saying that is I actually prefer it when he goes off on his wild takes and he says, I'd be shocked if Spurs beat Brentford. I'd be shocked. And then we go there and beat them 2-0. And then I'd be shocked if Spurs didn't concede 3 or 4 and then we keep a clean sheet. So it's a bit of a worry to me, actually, when Paul Merson predicts Tottenham to win. John Mansfield in the comments says, great comment from Merce, get him a pint. And Heidi says, Merce been drinking again. Yeah, quite possibly. Finally, guys, thank you so much for watching. Over 300 of you watching concurrently and 85 likes. If you haven't pressed that like button, guys, please do press it. Let's get to 100 likes. I don't know if you saw this, but Bayern Munich and ex-Spurs defender Eric Dier came out yesterday. Seems like he's a little bitter still about not getting enough chances to defend, to play as a defender under Ange Postecoglou. He said this: I didn't feel like I was always given a fair shake during my time in England. Actually, I think he's talking more generally. He says, I was motivated by that when I came to Bayern, and motivated to do well for this club, to try and play as best as I can individually and to help the team play as well as it can collectively. That is my main focus, but I definitely felt that a little bit when I left England. Listen, what I'd say about Eric Dier is I think he was underrated. He got a lot of stick because he made a fair few mistakes, but he played so many games. And listen, to me, no surprise that Thomas Tuchel bought him for Bayern. Jose Mourinho always wanted to buy him when he was at Manchester United. He played pretty much every game for Antonio Conte. So those managers who really know ball, they really trusted in Eric Dier. And I think he is an underrated centre-half. He played at the weekend. He's playing quite a lot at Bayern. Their fans love him there. He kept a clean sheet at the weekend. And I'm pleased that his career has gone upwards since leaving Spurs. I don't have a problem with Ange wanting him to leave. Like, he didn't feel like he suited his style of play. Maybe felt that he was a little slow on the turn. Eric Dier was also always actually pretty quick when he got up to full pace, but on the turn he was a little slow for sure. And I think Ange Postecoglou really has been quite open about the fact that he just kind of wanted to move on most of the players who were part of that previous Pochettino dynasty. So no problem for me that Eric Dier has gone on to Bayern Munich, and I'm glad that he's doing well there. Just before I leave, going to get into the comments. Heidi says, should we play Decky as attacking midfielder next season? He's unreal. I like the fact that he can play right and in that 8-10. It gives us lots of different options. Really like that. Mike Organ says, is it possible the deal with Qatar is already done and they're delaying it to avoid the premium that adds to player costs with a sovereign wealth fund owner? No, I don't think so. I think if the deal is done, then you have to announce it when you're such a big corporation. And obviously, the deal getting done doesn't mean that they can do anything because it has to go through the Premier League's fit and proper person test in terms of owners of clubs. El Dante says Maddison has a goal and assist every 105 minutes in the Premier League this season. I think it is. Yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? Don El Adio says we need Timo back. We've been horrible since we lost him. Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're taking the piss. Jenny DeFoot says Romero's back to training. Yeah, I mentioned that at the top of the show. That is good news. Let's keep him wrapped in cotton wool. The Big D says if Paul Merson predicts rain, yeah, completely agree. It'll be sunny. Actually, he goes on to say if he predicted rain, get your beach towel. It's going to be a scorcher of a day. Yeah, completely agree. And Rosie agrees. The rule of thumb is if Merson predicts one thing, go for the other. Well, yeah, in which case, if you're betting people and you want to put on an emotional cover bet, maybe go for the Manchester City victory. But I don't know. I think we can give them a good game. Like I said, it's a shot to nothing tomorrow. No pressure, really. Won 3 in a row. And Man City aren't in great form. They've got some injury problems. And home crowd should be up for it. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Who knows? It should be a good game. Probably will be a basketball game, end to end, lots of goals to it, I would have thought. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Please do press that like button on the video if you haven't already. Please do subscribe to the channel. Getting closer and closer to that 15,000 subscriber mark. Let's get there. If you know other people who are big Spurs fans and like to hear Tottenham transfer talk, Tottenham news, and also like live videos, live watch-alongs that I'd be doing. I'm doing live videos every 12:30 every afternoon of the Tottenham news now. So please do spread the word and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, guys. Only one more day till that Man City game, and maybe it'll be a glory night. Come on, you Spurs.